Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1483 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday here at the very, very end of May, almost to June. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn right now to get started. And today's show will be myself and Bill DiFilippo of UPROXX Sports and DIME. Bill and I work together at DIME, covering the NBA, covering college basketball, the draft, all that fun stuff. We'll talk about two different things on today's podcast. First, some Jaylen Brown Hawks stuff with regard to his trade potential, as well as potentially if the Hawks are a fit or not. And then the second half of the podcast will be Bill and I talking about the NBA Finals, which occur and start on Thursday in Denver between the Nuggets and the Heat. Plan to get to on that front as well. I'll encourage you to make the podcast your first listen each and every day, by the way. Anywhere you get your podcasts, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And a fun conversation today. We'll have more with Ben Pfeiffer, by the way, later on in the week. We've already had two parts with Ben up on the podcast network in the last couple of days on the NBA draft, first, second round picks, and then also the top of the lottery. The last installment, the third and final, will be about the Hawks' potential first round picks in the middle of the first round. That's going to be coming later in the week. But because the finals start on Thursday, good time to kind of break it up a little bit, talk to Bill, and we'll have much more later on in the week. Again, thank you for listening to the podcast. Without any further delay, we'll have the intro. I'll be back with myself and Bill on Jaylen Brown and the finals.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I am joined now by a colleague, a friend, basketball expert, general Penn State enthusiast. Hello, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great, Brad. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. The finals are upon us, and we're going to do a little bit of finals talk. I know it's not a general NBA podcast, but it's the finals. People can kind of get in. I'm sure everybody will be watching the finals, but I do want to start with a Hawks adjacent topic, and it's one that I've covered a little bit before by myself and through the Hawks lens, and we'll do a little bit of that, but I thought it was a good occasion to bring someone who covers the whole league on a national basis, and also make them answer about this. So Jaylen Brown is a popular topic for Atlanta Hawks fans, which makes some sense. He's from here. He's not a free agent, but he's a year away and it's not extended. And there have been some trade rumors around Jaylen Brown to the point where I think a lot of Hawks fans are just like assuming he's going to be traded to the Hawks, which is very funny in some ways. But it kind of reached a fever pitch when he had the very, very, very bad Game 7. And now there are questions about whether he's even worth the contract, all that stuff. So before we dive into the Hawks, like where do you stand on the Jaylen Brown thing, even just for the Celtics? Because it's a supermax offer they have to make, and that's, I think the assumption is, and we don't know this for sure, that they kind of have to offer him that, or he's not going to sign. So I don't know if that's the case or not. But where are you at on this?
So the thing with Jaylen Brown is that how many times over the years, and this is understandably with the caveat that they've never had to make him the most expensive NBA player to ever live. How many times over the years have they kind of gotten to an inflection point where it could be we go in this direction, we go in that direction, and it involves moving Jaylen and building around Jason. And they've decided, no way, we're just keeping Jaylen Brown. Like, even go back to last summer, it was that rumor came out about Jaylen and Kevin Durant, Jaylen's name being in Kevin Durant rumors. And Boston was really quick and emphatic. No, we're not doing that. So I think if I had to take a guess, and this is just off of a gut feeling, this is off of what has been reported, and this is about knowing the tendencies of the Celtics, how they go about their business, how they value their own guys. It's really hard for me to see anything happening other than signing Jaylen, saying, Jaylen, here's the Supermax, here's the 5-year, $295 million contract. We know you had a bad game, but we've seen you have a lot more really good games than that one really bad game. We want to keep you around. We want to keep you and Jason as a duo. You're both 25, 26 years old, whatever. I think that for how bad of a taste everyone has in their mouths around Jaylen Brown right now, Brad, and you can tell me if you think this is insane. This is one of those situations where the easiest answer, or the correct answer, is the easiest one. And the easiest one is just you put the contract in front of him, you get him locked up, and then you figure out what to do after that.
Yeah, I think that, And as we record this, we have not seen, at least I've not seen, like real intel on where Boston stands on whether they're going to offer this thing or not. I think the assumption is they probably will. And look, I know Hawks fans want Jaylen Brown. I understand that. If I was a Hawks viewing person, it's like, yeah, I want Jaylen Brown on my team. He's very good. You can debate how good he is, but everyone agrees he is very good, and he does fit with what Atlanta wants to do, all that stuff. But yeah, I think that I have to see Jaylen Brown turn down that money to believe that he would turn it down. It's so much money that if they offer the full designated extension, I have to assume he'll take it. And does that mean he gets traded in 2 years? Maybe that's possible, or maybe in a year. But you can't be traded for a year once you sign it, so that takes him off the board for a year. And basically no one has ever turned down a deal like that in the NBA, especially for a guy who isn't, honestly, it's not a no-brainer because he's not this kind of guy. If this was Giannis, it's an obviously no-brainer. You offer the guy whatever you can offer him. But Jaylen Brown is like the 25th best player in the league or something like that. I'm just throwing a number out there. I haven't done the list. But he's not a no-brainer top 10 player. Like, just for Tatum, they're just going to do it. You know what I mean? You could debate how good Tatum is too, but he's obviously sort of seen as a half tier or a tier above Jaylen Brown. So there's that decision for Boston. Then there's the decision for Brown, which again, I think he's just going to take it. They offer it. And the thing is, if he gets traded, the new team can't offer it. That's, I think, is a misconception out there. Like, let's just say, for instance, he got traded to the Hawks in the next month. The Hawks cannot offer him the Supermax. That is off the table. They can give him the Supermax at the end. Once he reaches free agency, they can pay him that giant deal, but they cannot extend him this summer. Nobody can at that number other than Boston. If they trade him, that's off the table. So, and the whole thing is, it's like DeJounte Murray.
Yes.
They can't offer him enough on the normal extension to get him to sign it. So it's this really weird situation, and I think people don't always operate through this. And look, I'm not expecting fans to know all the ins and outs of this thing. They just want Jaylen Brown, and I get it.
Right.
So I think I'm with you on this. I think the most likely scenario is probably Jaylen Brown gets the offer from Boston and signs it, and they figure it out later. It's a lot of money, man. I mean, Tatum is going to be even more, it seems like. Isn't that?
Yes.
I think so.
I
It's
think
like,
something like that.
It's like $600 million combined. It's some crazy, outrageous number. So, I mean, that's not the fun answer, but I think we agree on this.
Well,
now,
the one thing I will say is you and I agree on that. The one thing I will say is we are about to enter a CBA where the NBA is basically saying it is a bad thing if you want to try and spend money to be good.
Yeah.
And to me, more than what his performance was in this, basically in this one game 7, more than anything else, that is the one thing where if I am the Celtics, I'm going to go, the Celtics are a really good team at finding like a guy on a mid-level, finding ways to package a pick or two together to get a guy way down the road for a guy like Derek White, that kind of stuff. So to me, that's the more interesting thing with Jaylen Brown and whether or not they're going to give him this big contract. But again, at the end of the day, I'm sure something we'll end up talking about in a second. Like, if you are a team that wants to trade for Jaylen Brown, what would you rather do? Would you rather have this version of Jaylen Brown who could potentially walk away after 1 year, only signed 1 year deal, whatever it is? Or would you rather Jaylen Brown signs a 5-year max, next offseason you try to make a big offer, and next thing you know, you have Jaylen Brown for 5 years on your basketball team? Unless we have some weird Kevin Durant situation where he decides after a year, I'm out.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and make a fast break to FanDuel right now during the NBA playoffs, because right now, if you're a new customer with FanDuel, you get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. Yes, $2,500. That is all coming back to you in bonus bets if your first bet does not win with FanDuel. FanDuel is fantastic. They have great promotions each and every day. It's a safe and secure app. You get paid instantly, and they have everything you're looking for in the sports betting space. They have all the sports you like, of course, the NBA and college basketball, WNBA. They have football coming in the fall. They have baseball going on right now, golf, tennis, auto racing, horse racing, all that fun stuff at FanDuel. And they also have all the different wagering options for you. They have live betting, they have futures, point spreads, totals, player props, futures, all that fun stuff. It's all there at FanDuel. There's no better place in the world for playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get no sweat first bet. Again, up to $2,500 with FanDuel. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. It takes patience, but you're right. I mean, there is definitely, by the way, if I'm Boston, one of the reasons you probably just offer it is that you think you can trade him later if you want to,
Yes.
or that you need to. And I think that it's a lot for Jaylen Brown. I'm not sure it's going to be a good contract, but as long as he is good, a team will want him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like at the highest level, top 30 guys, they could get moved for something. It's not going to be that hard to do. Will you be able to get like the entire kit and caboodle for him that you might have gotten before? Maybe not, but like you'll get a lot. It doesn't matter. So for the Hawks, as we sort of pivot away from Jaylen Brown generalization, the Hawks, certainly are going to, if he's available, and we don't know if he's going to be, they're going to call. I mean, they obviously will. He has a local connection. He wore a Braves hat in the playoff. I'm not sure if you heard this story, Bill, because you're not from here, but that was a big story locally, is that he was wearing a Braves hat on the podium. He wants to. I'm serious. This happened.
He also had like that weird media tour right before the playoffs where he was like, "Hey, I don't know, maybe I'll leave. Who knows?"
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I don't know him well or anything, but he's an interesting guy. He's not a guy that you could just project. I think he has some interesting thoughts, and that media tour was interesting, generally speaking.
Yes.
So obviously the Hawks would offer a lot for him. I don't know how much they would offer. Question number one would be, they're not going to offer Trey. So let's take Trey off the table. I know that's one way to get Jaylen Brown would be to trade Trey. They're not going to do that. I don't think neither. Anyway. So I think it's basically, does Boston want DeJounte Murray? How much does Boston like DeJounte Murray? And if they don't want DeJounte Murray, you got to trade like everything else you possibly have, like AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson, every pick you can still trade, the Herder pick, all that stuff, a Kongwu, whatever it is. So I don't know what Boston would want. It doesn't strike me as DeJounte being like the most Boston player imaginable.
Yeah.
But they also might want a more on-ball. That's been one of the things that Boston maybe has been criticized for, is not having that kind of on-ball point guard type. So maybe that's what they want. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're Boston, like, let's just say that Jaylen Brown doesn't want the deal, or they don't offer it and you have to trade him. It'll be a bidding war. It won't just be the Hawks, but let's just say Jaylen likes the Hawks and wants to go there. Does anything intrigue you if you're the Celtics, or what the Hawks' position would be?
Well, for me, there are two paths that the Hawks can take to get him. Number one is the one that you pointed out. It's one that you and I agree would be necessary, and it's one that you and I agree would be cut off at the pass immediately. I do not think they would trade Trae Young to try and get Jaylen Brown. That would be, that would kind of defeat the purpose of, the way they've kind of structured things in recent months, with their front office being people who Trae has a really good relationship with Quinn Snyder being a guy who Trae speaks so glowingly about. Like it would just make no sense to me to trade Trae, which is a hard thing to say just as two words back to back. Trade Trae. Moving Trae to try and get someone. So then you move to, okay, what could a deal look like? Can you get him with John Collins, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Onyeka Okongwu, or DeJounte Murray, Onyeka Okongwu, AJ Griffin, this, and this. And the tricky spot that I think the Hawks are in is that I think the Celtics are in a pretty similar spot, where you look at who they have under contract next year: Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, Derek White, Robert Williams, Danilo Gallinari, Luke Cornett, Sam Hauser, and then player options on Peyton Pritchard, or team options on Peyton Pritchard and Mike Muscala. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 12 guys, all of whom Joe Mazzulla trusts to one extent or another. I don't know if they are a team that, if they are making some kind of deal, it's a deal to turn one guy into three guys, which is kind of the issue that the Hawks find themselves in, where they have a million dudes who are under contract. They're guys who are either promising or part of their rotation. And I just don't know if Boston would want to take three players from Atlanta and turn one guy and turn it into three guys from Atlanta. Like, if I had to guess, the smarter thing for them would probably be to take one or two guys and turn them into one guy. I don't know if they would actually do that, but I think if the Hawks are making a trade this summer, it is to take three guys and turn it into one guy. And to that end, I just don't know if Boston makes a ton of sense. Now, if Boston can get, just pulling something out of left field here, if Boston can turn Jaylen Brown and Al Horford into John Collins, DeJounte Murray, Onyeka Okongwu, and AJ Griffin, maybe that changes things a little bit because then they're turning a guy in Al who's starting to show his age a little bit into a couple younger guys, a couple guys who could stick around for a while or under contract, blah, blah, blah. But that's the one issue other than not trading Trey that I think the Hawks would run into if they're trying to be the team that goes out to get Jaylen Brown.
I think you did that to appeal to me directly to throw Al in there. That was nice. Really nuanced from you.
Listen. We've worked together for a long time. I know what you like, man.
I agree, generally with the process. The one potential card the Hawks have is one that I think people believe is more likely than it actually is, and that would be that Jaylen Brown goes to Boston and says, "I want to be traded to Atlanta," like capital to Atlanta, and a couple things there. Number one, we don't know that's going to happen. Number two, even if it does, Boston doesn't have to listen. They don't have to do it. Like Kevin Durant, we will get this. Like Kevin Durant asked for a trade, and Brooklyn said no, and that was Kevin Durant, the top 15 player of all time. Now they eventually traded him a year later, but like that, you don't have to trade the guy, especially to that team.
And holding on to KD meant that when it came time to actually make that trade, it was in mid-season, and the team that wanted KD was desperate enough to give up everything.
Well, and maybe Atlanta would be doing. But listen, this is a new front office we don't know a lot about yet. I keep saying that, and it's true. And maybe the Hawks would just say, "Okay, Boston, we will give you anything that's not Trey, literally anything you want." And look, that could be. I mean, there's a way the Hawks overpay in a trade for Jaylen Brown. I'm not saying that's likely, but if you trade everything, which I'm, and for me that means Okongwu, Jaylen, AJ, the remaining picks, and the salary ballast, whether it's DeJounte Murray or whatever, that's a lot, man. You're getting a lot for him. That's a lot. I'm not saying you don't do it or you can't do it, but there is a way to overpay in that trade. Just like Phoenix might overpay for Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin Durant's awesome. I'm not saying I get why they did it. They gave up everything. So there's nuance there for sure. Yeah,
and I'll certainly say this: if the Hawks, like when I'm looking at potential Jaylen Brown landing spots, the thought of putting him in Atlanta next to Trey, next to a guy like Trey, who I think would Jaylen's big issue is he's not a great creator for himself, and Trey
or others,
or others, and Trey is excellent. So like when we look at spots for Jaylen, Atlanta is certainly one that I would love to see him in. It's just the path to getting there is where it starts to get a little bit difficult for me.
I agree. So that's enough for now on Jaylen Brown. The Photoshops will continue. I think it's possible. I mean, this is one of those situations where a lot of the fake trades I will just dunk on because they're just so absurd. Like there's obviously there is a path to Jaylen Brown coming to Atlanta. I'm not going to be the person that says that there isn't. It's possible. I think that it's less likely that people want to think that it is, which is fine. That's part of the deal. And also, this is a pet peeve that I have. People are referring to this as a Jaylen Brown trade rumor. We have not reached a single trade rumor about Jaylen Brown to the Hawks.
We have had one Jaylen Brown trade rumor over the last 5 years, and it was the Kevin Durant.
It was the KD
thing. Shot down.
Yeah, and I get it. Rumor is a shorthand for like buzz on the internet. I get it, but like we are not at rumor stage or anything close. I wish there was a rumor. It'd be great for content if there were actual Hawks Jaylen Brown rumors. That'd be awesome. We'd have a lot of things to talk about and packages, but we're not there on the rumor front because there's Photoshops. Does that mean that there's rumors? Anyway,
we'll get there soon. Hopefully.
Yeah, if you're a Hawks fan, you're cross your fingers. And I do, to your point, agree wholeheartedly that pairing him with someone like Trey is the best case scenario for him in addition to the team, because he does need someone to set him up more. We saw that limitation. His ball handling is very funny in some ways. For a guy as good as he is, he's about as bad of a ball handler as there is. He's improved there, actually. It's kind of funny, but
for sure.
He used to be much worse, but we saw that, his decision making is not always the best. He's a scorer, and that's what he is. And if you have Trey next to him, it'd be a lot better. All right. The other ostensible purpose of you being on the show today, and thank you for doing this, is to briefly preview the finals. Now, this is not going to be a full hour-long preview of the finals because it's not what we do here, but they start on Thursday evening in Denver. That's a kind of a surprise that they're the host of the game one, because they were going to be if Boston won the series against Miami. Mea culpa. I've always been low on Miami this year. I look to be right for 82 games when they were literally outscored for the season. And now they're in the finals. So what do I know? Nothing, apparently. So Where are you at on the whole series, broadly speaking? Because Denver's a big favorite. In fact, I'll give you this number before we dive in. Denver is on FanDuel, our friends over there, Denver is a minus 460 favorite in the series. So that's a very large projection. Not quite ESPN BPI.
Not quite ESPN. Yeah. ESPN has it at like 92 or 93%.
Okay,
what does minus 460 come out to?
I will check that for sure. It's like it's in the 80s. So minus 82%.
Okay.
That is might be high. It feels like that's more appropriate than whatever ESPN is doing. And they got. I was actually heartened by how much ESPN was made fun of for the 97% thing, because it was the dumbest thing. Even as someone who was very low on Miami in that series, I thought they were not going to win. I even said on this program, that's absurd that it's 97-3. So anyway, at least they're not quite that far, but it's still great. 92, is that what you said it was?
So it was 92, 93, something like that.
That's too high. Even by the way, I'm picking Denver in the series. I'll tell you that right now. That's too high.
Picking Denver in the series, and that is too high. But I think this finals rocks, man. I think it's a really good example of two teams that are such strong believers in how they go about their business. In Miami with, it's built in Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra's vision. We are going to bank on our ability to develop guys, on finding these undrafted free agent gems, on being able to get the most out of every single deal we have. But then you have a team in Denver that, Tim Connolly leaves to go take the Minnesota Timberwolves job. They promote internally. There have been plenty of times where they would have been totally justified in getting rid of Michael Malone and saying, we need the guy who can get us over the hump. They've stuck with him. Jamal Murray told that story during the Lakers series, where after he hurt his knee, he was like, you guys are going to trade me. Like, it would be very easy for you to trade me. And they said, no, absolutely not. And I think there is just something really cool about the fact that we see how quickly teams decide to press the eject button. See the last conversation that we just had 5 minutes ago.
Right.
See how quickly teams are willing to give up on players, willing to give up on coaches, willing to give up on their system, their process, kind of their core beliefs. And I think it's really cool to see two teams that made it to the finals in like the exact opposite ways that you possibly can, with Denver being this indomitable 1 seed, hasn't lost at home since March. Miami being, right there to get eliminated in the play-in tournament, and now ending up in this spot. I think it's really cool that we're getting these two teams, a brand new mashup, one that is driving the people who pretend to care about ratings and saying, like, everything's great. This is an awesome NBA final. It's something we have never seen before in the finals, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it is a dead giveaway. And listen, I actually am very, very, very interested in sports media. I'm a sports media nerd, and I will be interested in the ratings in the finals, but no one should care about the ratings.
Correct.
Finals. So like if that's your, unless people that work at Disney, basically.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very weird to me that this is the finals. Not because, Denver being there is not a surprise. Miami is a surprise. No matter who you are. I mean, I think maybe a Heat enthusiast would have projected this, but nobody had that.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you surprised by how easily Denver was able to get through the Western? Because like a lot of close games in there, but still they've lost
a little.
Yeah.
I mean, not honestly, with the way that it shook out, I picked them, and actually I had to do these previews for Sportsline, so it's actually in print. I picked them in every series. I guess people were picking Phoenix against them. I like Denver in that series, but I think it was probably easier than I thought that they were going to beat Phoenix.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have projected a sweep against the Lakers. I like them a lot against the Lakers.
Yeah.
Much more so than, I don't know, David Meneman. Just throw one name out there.
Jesus Christ, Brad.
But I would not have had a sweep. So I guess if just the little definition of like, it only took them, it was 5-6-4. So it took them 15 games to get here. That would have been
lost by like a combined like 21 points.
I would have projected more than that as far as total games to get to the finals for Denver, but them being there is not a surprise. And look, I think them being a favorite of this magnitude in the finals is something that they probably couldn't even expect. I mean, again, that's because Miami's there, and Miami, again, credit to them, they got there, they earned it. But yeah, I mean, the fact that Denver has home court too is huge. I mean, you don't want to overstate it because I think home court means less than ever, but in Denver, it means a lot, man. The altitude, they were 34-7 in the regular season at home. They're 8-0 in the playoffs, and it's like a plus 12 net rating. Like they haven't
lost at home since March.
They've been dominant.
It's ridiculous.
And that, you know, that's a big thing. Like I kind of dismiss home court advantage a lot of the time now, but not in Denver. Them playing at home is a big deal. So I don't know. I think I'll ask you this. I agree with you on the series itself being really interesting from a basketball nerd perspective that you and I have. Like Miami runs different stuff, and can they zone Denver? That kind of stuff. What is the pathway in your mind from Miami to maybe win, but even like to push just to like 7, let's say, make it close or win? Like, what do they have to do? Is it just Jimmy being nuclear again?
Kind of. I mean, there are two things with Miami's offense that I find really interesting in this series. Number one is the fact that I think Denver might be as well equipped to defend Jimmy as any team that we've seen. Aaron Gordon is the kind of big, strong, athletic guy that can battle with him, and he's been really good about avoiding foul trouble. And then if he's not able to do it for one reason or another, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope going to give up a bit of size, but you know, he fights on defense. Bruce Brown gives up a bit of size, fights on defense, that kind of thing. The thing that I find so interesting, though, is if Jimmy is able to do the thing that he does, where he is able to get by guys, or he's able to be a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, and get to the rim, Denver's not especially good at protecting the rim. Nikola Jokic is really good at being in the right positions. I don't think anyone would mistake him for being Hakeem Olajuwon when it comes to protecting the rim.
No.
So that's kind of one thing. Is Jimmy Butler able to get into those spots that make him such a dangerous offensive player? And if he is Denver, which has been an okay defensive team this year, they're certainly not, between the Knicks, the Bucks, and the Celtics, this is probably the worst defense that Miami has played. Out of their defensive rating, I know they were like 15th in defensive rating during the regular season. Yeah. Probably the worst defense that Miami has played. So that leads to the second thing. If Jimmy is able to get into those spots, if Bam Adebayo, who, not exactly a force scoring the ball, is able to do enough of that weird dribble handoff passing stuff that makes him so dangerous to find Miami shooters who were not good during the regular season. Like the fact that I think Miami is one of those teams, has a reputation for being one of those teams that can shoot. They were 27th in the league in 3-point field goal percentage during the regular season. And then you look at what they did against Boston. Boston took, I have the numbers in front of me, 212 threes that were classified as either open or wide open. Miami took 162 of them. Despite that, Miami made 8 more of those threes, 79-71 than Boston. They were just getting an insane hot streak from behind the 3-point line. And if they can do that against Denver, if they can carry on this historic shooting from behind the 3-point line, and if Denver's guys are not able to slow Jimmy Butler down to the extent they need to, I can start to see a path for Miami. Even though, like you mentioned, I have a really hard time seeing Miami taking a game off of Denver in Denver. Unless they do some weird Heat devil magic where they win game 1 and all of a sudden, like, the entire series shifts on his head from the very jump.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I think that Miami is going to have and does have a significant rest disadvantage in game 1, which makes it even harder. Like they got to be gassed after playing 7 games, but maybe it's the rust thing. I'm sure that's been talked about everywhere. Like Denver hasn't played in a long time. Maybe they just punch him in the mouth early on and that's it. But yeah, I mean, I really, really, really don't want to boil it down only to this.
Right.
But Miami shot 43% from 3 against Boston, and Boston shot 30% on, like you said, disparate volumes. Yes. And like, maybe Miami can do it again. It's so funny that they shot it like crazy against Milwaukee. They didn't shoot well against New York when they didn't have to. Their one series where they were actually favored was against the Knicks, and they didn't make shots in that series. And then when they needed to against Boston, they made shots again. But yeah, I think that there is a way for Miami to score. It starts with Jimmy. I think Jimmy's going to have to be better than he was against Boston. But he had moments against Boston for sure. He was still good in the series, but he had a couple full games where he was not very good against Boston.
Yeah. And I have it up here. The final 5 games of the series, Jimmy shot 38.7% from the field.
He can't do that again. They're not going to win the series if he's not incredible. And that's fine. I mean, he doesn't have to be the guy. I mean, he was like averaging 40 a game for a while against Milwaukee or whatever. He doesn't have to be that guy, but he's got to be good. Because Caleb Martin, God bless his soul, who was incredible in the last series, isn't going to shoot 60%, I don't think, against Denver. Maybe he will. Maybe I'm
don't you dare disrespect a member of the Miami Heat, Brad. This will be chopped up and put on.
Oh, trust me. I get plenty of this. Even from even on this podcast, the Hawks podcast, people are like, why do you hate Miami so much? I'm like, guys, they literally got outscored in the regular season. I was right about Miami for 82 games. I did pick them against the Knicks, though. At least there's that. I'm not 0-3. I picked them against the Knicks. But no. And there's some talk about Hero coming back. I've poked plenty of fun at Tyler Hero. I think the Ewing theory stuff there is funny to me. I think they've actually been better without him. I do believe that. But they might need him to score against Denver.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? I think with the way that Jimmy has played through 3 series and the way that Kyle Lowry has played and Gabe Vincent has played and even Duncan Robinson has played and Caleb Martin has played, they haven't needed Hero. They just haven't. And he makes them so much worse defensively that they haven't needed his offense. Yeah. There's a world in this series where they actually might need him as a creator if the magic kind of runs out with the other guys. Like if Caleb Martin's not hitting every single shot or if, all that stuff. So that's something to keep an eye on. I tend to think that, again, I kind of think they've been better without him, that doesn't mean he's bad. I just think that matchup-wise. So I'm with you. I think it can be competitive. I think that they can do a good job, and Spo's really good. I think that Michael Malone is better at his job than Joe Mazzulla is at his job at this very moment. So that's a little bit less of a glaring advantage than it was in the last series. And look, importantly, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the series. Obviously, I think if you lined up every player in Boston, Miami, and said who is the best player in 2023, I think Tatum is better than Butler. But in the playoffs, I think I might take Butler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With playoff Jimmy and all that, I know he hates that. But Jokic is the best player in the series. And then you also have a guy in Murray who I've never been the biggest fan of, but I think obviously he's dynamic. They can have the best 2 players in the series. If Jimmy's not superhuman, and the way that Murray's been playing, that's a difference to me in this series. Is that the other end of the floor? I don't really think Miami can stop Denver. They can slow them down. Denver is the best offensive team in the league at full strength. Their starting lineup is the best lineup in the league by the numbers for like 2 years now, like a year and a half now, how long it's been. And like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe disagree, but that's the part that I don't see. I can see Miami continuing, like you said, their double magic and making shots. I don't really see the path where they stop Denver.
The tough thing for Miami is that if they try to junk it up, if they say we're putting a zone out there, if they say we're going to do this little tweak, this little tweak, the only guys who are on Jokic's level in terms of seeing something once and figuring it out are LeBron James, are Luka Doncic, and that might be it. Like, he is just that good at being given a problem and solving it after seeing it 1 or 2 times. And on top of that, we talk a lot. By we, I mean you and I, and also the general kind of basketball collective consciousness of Miami and how they shot from 3 and how hot they got. I'm going to give you the 3-point field goal percentage for several guys on Denver. In the postseason, Jokic is at 47.4%. KCP is at 41.1%. Michael Porter is at 40.8%. Jamal Murray is at 39.8%. And then Aaron Gordon, a guy that I don't think anyone would say is a shooter, is at 35.1%, which for him is like, that's the guy we want to leave wide open, and he's hitting 35% of his threes.
Yep.
So there's that stuff. There's the fact that I have no idea what the plan is going to be to try and slow down Jokic. I think they're going to put Bam Adebayo on him. I know there's going to be the school of thought of, okay, do we maybe put Bam on someone else, kind of let him be a rover?
Do the Kevin Love, use Kevin Love like they did, and then use Bam like they did with AD in the Lakers series?
Yeah, use Kevin Love, use Cody Zeller, maybe even put Jimmy on him and just hope that Jimmy could provide a little bit of muscle. Caleb Martin could provide a little bit of muscle, even if they're undersized. I don't think that would work especially well. Brad, I went through and looked. Can you tell me in the 2 matchups that the Miami Heat played against the Denver Nuggets this year, Bam spent the most time on Jokic according to NBA.com's matchup stats. Who was second?
Oh, Lord. Because you're asking me, it's going to be something weird. I will say Dwayne Dedmon.
It was Orlando Robinson, who was on a 2-way contract and is not with the team.
Right now. I knew it was something weird like that just because of the way you teed it up. But,
yes.
And by the way, to your point earlier, like Miami got a lot of credit, and they should have, for the zone they play against Boston.
Yeah.
I think it was Kevin Pelton I heard this from on the podcast. And he was basically gave the numbers like Denver has the best zone offense in the league. They kill zone. Now, Miami plays the best zone in the league, so that's a little bit different. They play the most zone in the league. They're really well coached at it. But that's not a team that you want to zone. I don't think. It could be a wrinkle for a quarter or whatever, but that can't be I think Spo knows that can't be their plan. They're not going to be able to zone them like they did Boston.
Yeah, like Denver will both shoot over it, and also the weak spot in Miami's zone can be that little free throw line area. If you let Nikola Jokic stand unperturbed at the free throw line, you are dead.
He's going to kill you. Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed. And yeah, I'm glad you brought 3-point shooting. Denver as a team in the playoffs is like 38 or 39%. That's good. It's not incredible. That's about what they shoot normally, which is credit to them. But yeah, this is, again, reductive, but if Murray has a bad series, that opens the door. Mm-hmm. I don't think Jokic is going to have a bad series. He's just too good. He might have a bad game, but like he's just too good. There's no way to stop him. Murray's the guy that really swings it. If he's the guy he was against the Lakers, Denver's going to win. I have no doubt at all. He was absurd against the Lakers, so there's that. But even Porter, I think those are the 2 guys. It's very obvious in some ways. If Denver just got nothing from Porter and Murray, then it becomes an even series. You know what I mean? But if Porter makes his jumpers, and he usually does, and if Murray, I don't think Murray's going to have 7 good games. He doesn't usually do that. He's pretty up and down in some ways, even within games. But if he wins them a game or 2, like you're just kind of drawing dead. So I don't know. Long story short, I think that our friends at FanDuel again have the most likely outcome in the series being Nuggets in 5, as far as like the exact outcome. The series like spread is basically Nuggets. I'm looking at it now. Nuggets minus 1.5, and they're favored. So basically, Nuggets in 6 games or less is a favored outcome in the series. Nuggets in 5 is the most likely outcome. I guess it's prediction time. What do you think is are you in agreement with FanDuel that's the most likely outcome, or do you like something else?
I was thinking Nuggets in 5 for the pretty simple reason that it's really hard for me to see Miami winning a game in Denver. Short rest, going into altitude, a team they don't necessarily match up great against.
Yeah.
So 2 games, we'll say those 2 games go Denver's way. By the time it gets to Miami, you were then saying to me, Denver has to win 1 game in Miami before it then gets back to Denver. And those conditions are exactly the same. Only Miami has 4 games of NBA Finals wear and tear on them. So I was thinking Nuggets in 5, which means the Heat are going to win the series in 6 games. And exactly. let me look at there. Omer Yurtseven is going to play out of his mind. Nikola Jovic is going to be the best Nikola J-O something I see, and like something stupid. Like this is just what Miami does.
It is, and I have learned my lesson on some level about. And look, I never would have, and I didn't dismiss the Heat against Boston. I picked Boston in the series, but I thought Miami had a chance. The one time I did think they had a chance was against Milwaukee. That I was stunned by that result. Stunned.
And you don't want to be the person who sounds like you're adding all these caveats, but like if Giannis doesn't fall down, and he just didn't look right at any point in that series, maybe it changes things. But at the same time, like
it's Miami, so maybe not.
Yeah,
I mean, so yeah. The Tatum thing, whatever. Miami was the better team in the majority of the series in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not sure that Boston doesn't win some of the time if something breaks wrong, or whatever. But like Miami was a worthy winner of that series. It was not a fluke.
Exactly.
They outplayed them. So I'm not going to write them off. And again, we poked fun at it earlier, but we don't speak for yourself. But I don't think this is 90-10 series. I think this is much closer than that. I can't pick Miami. I think, hats off to you if you want to pick Miami and they win. Hats off. Denver's just so much better than them on paper that I can't possibly pick Miami. But I will acknowledge, Miami has the best coach in the league, in my opinion. That really matters. And it's a team that's playoff tested.
They've been here. Yeah, they've been here before.
They've been here. Jimmy's a maniac in the best way for this kind of setup. So yeah, I won't fall on the floor if Miami wins the series. But I think that Denver's better.
And I think if Spo can get this to a place where all the little weird ways he wants to junk a series up, whether it's throwing out that zone, throwing out a 1-3-1 zone, full court pressuring Miami, and that gets Murray out of his rhythm, some weird thing where Gabe Vincent is guarding Jokic, and that somehow he's going to come up with all these little weird tricks, these little things up his sleeve that come from being in this environment and understanding that it was a thing that I thought we saw big time in the Celtics series. There is merit. There is something honorable about your best plan B being just do your plan A better, which was kind of Boston's approach the entire series. And for a couple games, started to work, ended up not working towards the very end. Spo understands that good process that leads to bad results in this environment is not good process. Your process could suck, but if it gets you the results that you need, that's all that matters. And that's just the one thing I'm interested in, and one way that I think Miami might have a bit of an edge. It's that they're going to be willing to do literally anything and everything and it'll be gross, it'll be weird, it'll be ugly, it'll be nonsensical. But if it leads to them picking up a bunch of 97-81 wins, or they magically have one game where they score 130 points, nobody will care.
Oh, that's right. You're right. And they have that playoff experience, and you don't want to attribute too much to coaching, but it does. He's literally, I think, the best coach in the league. And that really helps. And
in fairness, Malone is also,
he's also really good.
He has pressed every single correct button.
Yeah. And that is why I have more confidence in Denver than I would in a lot of teams here, is that I think Malone has done a good job. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's as good as Spo. If you gave him the same team, I think Spo would be the guy I'd want. But Malone has the better team, and he's also been around. He's not been in the finals like Spo, but he's been through the wars. He's been in a long time. So we seem to like Denver. We'll see if Miami can do it one more time. They certainly could. Maybe Jimmy will be the MVP, and they'll just go out and he'll average 38 a game, and they'll win. I don't know. So one big shrug from us.
I'm rooting for Miami because that would be the weirdest possible outcome to all of this. It would make the most people as furious, as more people angry than any other potential outcome. So go Heat, I guess.
You want chaos. You want Jimmy content from the podium if they win. It would be incredible. Jimmy would put on an absolute show if they won the finals. I have no doubt about that.
Jimmy would light off fireworks inside of a building to celebrate. He'd do something very silly.
It would be really good content. Also, we could also get the Michael Malone revenge tour that he's been on for the last 3 or 4 weeks, when he's talking about every single slight that they got from Kendrick Perkins on ESPN.
Yes.
So
Malone is. I greatly enjoy. There is no coach whose press conferences I love more than Michael Malone, because he sits down, reads everything in the box score, and then it's just suddenly, he'll say, all right, so I was listening to Keyshawn Johnson on his television show with Jay Williams, and he said something I didn't like. And how do you do that? How do you have the energy for this? But the Heat are also these are the two best teams at taking weird slights and turning them into the biggest thing in the world as a source of motivation.
Right. It's great.
There's something very noble about that.
It's whatever works for you. I'm sure that, listen, no one cares about what I say, but I am very sure that the Heat could find some stuff that I've said that it would be motivating for them. Okay. Well, Bill, thank you for doing this. Please plug what you have going on. I know you have lots of things in the world that you would like to share about what you're doing in life. So go ahead. Feel free.
Just read the stuff that we're going to be doing on Dime throughout the NBA Finals, and once the finals end, silly season rolls around, which is always a fun time for everyone in the world of basketball. Then I'm around, I'm doing stuff, whatever.
Go State, am I right? Go State. Thank you, Bill. Bill, you're a mensch. I appreciate you doing this. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow Bill on the Twitter machine if you'd like to. Follow the folks at Dime, where I contribute mostly on Mondays these days. But alas, here we are. And we'll see you all next time.